Hello everyone, welcome to Hopeful Moments 1. Today, we're going to explore a meaningful story about responsibility in marriage, sharing household duties, and how couples navigate differences in daily habits. Marriage is not just about love, it's about companionship, understanding, and sharing responsibilities to build a happy home together. Our story begins with what seems like a simple situation but quickly unfolds into unexpected and profound reactions. The husband, a patient man, has been waking his wife up every morning for a long time, despite knowing how much she hates getting out of bed. He has done this without complaint, even when it occasionally frustrated him. But one busy morning, when he accidentally woke her up 20 minutes later than promised, he didn't just receive a complaint, he was accused of being unreliable. That moment became a turning point in their relationship. What started as a small act of support turned into a burden, a duty he no longer wanted to take on. The frustration that had been building up inside him for so long finally exploded, and he firmly declared, "From now on, I will never wake you up in the morning again. You're an adult, you can take responsibility for this yourself." This wasn't just a regular argument, it reflected a deeper issue: fairness in marriage, the limits of sacrifice, and the importance of mutual understanding. Was the husband's decision justified? How would the wife react to this change? And most importantly, how would they reconcile their differences to protect their family's happiness? Let's discuss this story together. If you find it interesting and insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Hopeful Moments 1 for more meaningful stories about love, marriage, and life. I, 38M, and my wife, 37F, are raising 3 young children together, an experience that is both amazing and exhausting. Our youngest is just 6 months old and still sleeps in our room, which means sleepless nights, interrupted sleep, and exhausting mornings. Life with young children is an endless cycle. Every day is filled with feeding, soothing, playing, cleaning, and then repeating it all over again. We love our kids, but we can't deny that this life demands an incredible amount of effort, patience, and sacrifice. Because of this, the differences in our daily routines have never been more obvious. Our different rhythms. I'm an early riser. I love those rare quiet moments at 5:30 a.m., the only time of the day when I can breathe, think, or get a few personal things done before the kids wake up and take over my schedule. My wife, on the other hand, is a night owl. She hates waking up early. And this isn't something new, she has struggled with mornings her entire life. Her family even gave her the nickname the Lion, not just because of her wild, messy blonde hair in the morning, but also because of her grumpy mood when being woken up. They used to draw straws to decide who would have the unlucky job of waking her up each day. Even now, it's still an ongoing joke in her family. Before having kids, this wasn't a big issue. But now, when both of us are exhausted from the demands of family life, issues like who gets more sleep, who wakes up first, who gets to rest more, they all become sensitive topics. And what once seemed like a minor issue has slowly turned into a battle between us. I wake up early. Every morning, when the world is still asleep, I get up around 5:30 a.m. and cherish those quiet moments before the chaos of the day begins. These moments are precious and necessary, not just to prepare for the long day ahead but to remind myself that I still have some control over my life. I make myself a hot cup of coffee, watching the steam rise in the dim morning light. Sometimes, I read a few pages of a book, not because I have plenty of time, but because simply turning pages without being interrupted has become a luxury. Some days, I check emails or do quick work tasks to stay ahead before the kids wake up. Other days, I just sit there, doing nothing, simply enjoying the peace before it disappears. Because I know, in just a few moments, this silence will be shattered. The house will soon be filled with the sound of little footsteps, giggles, cries for food, and an endless stream of demands. "Daddy, I'm hungry." "Daddy, I can't find my toy." "Daddy, I spilled my milk." Every day starts this way, from calm to chaos in just minutes. And that's exactly why I treasure these early morning moments so much, because they are the only part of the day that truly belongs to me. My wife, on the other hand, is a true night owl. If I see mornings as a chance to reset, she sees them as a nightmare. Her reaction to an alarm clock tells you everything you need to know: a deep frown, blindly reaching to turn it off, mumbling protests as if rejecting the very existence of morning itself. For her, getting out of bed is torture. And this isn't a new habit, it has been a part of her since childhood. Her family realized this early on, which is why they gave her the nickname the Lion, not just because of her messy hair but because of her ferocious morning mood. The story of waking her up has become a part of the family tradition, to the point where relatives had to draw lots to decide who would be the warrior assigned to this challenging mission. Every morning, the loser would have to bravely step into the room, filled with determination yet also hesitation, ready to face an angry glare, grumbling complaints, or even a pillow flying straight at their face if they happened to wake her too abruptly. And the funny thing is, this hasn't changed over the years. Even as an adult, after getting married and having kids, the morning lion has remained exactly the same. Her family still brings up this story as a light-hearted joke during family gatherings, and it was even mentioned in our wedding speech, a humorous warning about what I was about to face every morning for the rest of my life. The difference in our biological rhythms is undeniable. I always feel full of energy in the morning, enjoying the fresh start of a new day, while she finds nighttime to be her precious moment of peace, her chance to unwind and enjoy her own world after a long, exhausting day. For me, the morning is when my mind is the clearest. I can work efficiently, think clearly, and cherish the calm before the chaos of our kids begins. But for her, the morning is a time to be delayed for as long as possible. She doesn't welcome the day, she feels like she's being dragged into it against her will. On the other hand, when night falls, I am the one who runs out of energy. After putting the kids to bed, cleaning up the house, and organizing everything, all I want to do is rest and fall asleep as soon as possible. But that's exactly when she feels the most awake and at ease. While I yawn and prepare for bed, she is just beginning to enjoy her rare quiet time, whether it's watching a show, reading a book, or simply lounging on the couch, soaking in the few precious moments of relaxation before diving into another busy day. This difference doesn't just affect our personal routines, it directly impacts how we manage family responsibilities together. With small children, time is no longer just our own, it has to be balanced carefully so that we can share the workload. But in reality, it's not always easy. I can wake up early to prepare breakfast, take care of the kids, and start the day feeling ready, but by the evening, I'm completely drained and need to rest. Meanwhile, my wife is trying to use her late-night hours to reclaim some sense of personal freedom amidst the overwhelming responsibilities of motherhood. This mismatch in schedules sometimes makes it difficult for us to coordinate and divide tasks efficiently. We both try our best, but blending two different lifestyles within a household with young children is never simple. Differences that seemed minor, like who wakes up first, who handles what in the morning or evening, can become the root of underlying tensions, especially when both of us are already exhausted from parenting. However, I completely understand why she is the way she is. Life as parents of young kids has never been easy, especially when sleep becomes more of a luxury than a necessity. We are constantly in a cycle of sleep deprivation, endless nights of interrupted rest, waking up to crying babies, and starting each morning feeling drained from the previous day. Right now, she's on maternity leave, meaning she's the one handling our youngest child at night. Every night, she has to wake up at least once or twice to nurse the baby, soothe them back to sleep, and make sure they don't wake up the entire household. Meanwhile, I'm still sound asleep next to her. I'm not the one getting up in the middle of the night, not the one walking around for hours trying to calm a fussy baby back to sleep. I can't deny that she has it much harder during this time. I don't blame her for staying up late every night either. When the kids go to bed around 7:30 p.m., we still can't relax right away. There's an entire battlefield to clean up, the house to tidy, things to prepare for the next day. Only after everything is settled can we finally sit down and take a deep breath. But even then, I'm usually so exhausted that I just want to go straight to sleep. Meanwhile, my wife, despite being just as tired, doesn't want her day to end with nothing but chores and childcare. She needs a little time for herself, even if it's just an hour to watch a favorite show, read a few pages of a book, or simply sit in silence, enjoying the rare peace she hardly gets during the day. I get it. I know that late night time isn't just a habit for her, it's a way to hold on to a small piece of personal freedom and balance amidst the overwhelming demands of motherhood. And because of that, I never blame her for wanting to sleep in. I just feel exhausted that my role in all of this, waking her up every morning, has become such a source of tension. Right now, she's on maternity leave, but that doesn't mean she's actually getting any rest. On the contrary, she's doing a job with no breaks, no days off, no salary, and no recognition. Every night, while I'm still sleeping peacefully beside her, she's waking up once or twice to nurse, rock, change, and comfort our baby back to sleep. These are the moments where, no matter how much I love and appreciate her, I simply cannot replace her. I know it's not fair. But it's the reality we've both accepted. There are nights when I wake up and see her sitting up in bed, the soft glow of the nightlight illuminating her tired face as she cradles our baby in her arms. I see the dark circles under her eyes, the way her shoulders slump slightly from exhaustion, the way she gently hums a lullaby despite her fatigue. And in those moments, I feel guilty. I know that, even without saying it, she is utterly exhausted. Every morning, I can wake up at 5:30 and enjoy a little personal space, but she doesn't have that privilege. So, I don't blame her for wanting to sleep in. She's not lazy, she's just trying to recover from endless nights of sleep deprivation, from the sheer physical and mental exhaustion of taking care of a tiny human who depends entirely on her. What truly exhausts me isn't that she sleeps in, it's that I'm the one responsible for waking her up every morning. I understand her fatigue, but does that mean I have to be responsible for managing her wake-up schedule every single day? I also don't blame her for staying up later than I do. The night is the only time she truly gets a moment to herself. After a full day of juggling kids, responsibilities, and an endless list of unseen chores, the evening is when she can finally breathe without interruption. But in reality, it's not instant relaxation, it's just the start of another shift. After putting the kids to bed around 7:30 p.m., one might think we can finally rest. But no, that's when we deal with the aftermath of the day. We clean up the house, pick up the scattered toys, clear the dining table, wash the dishes, and prepare for the next day. These tasks aren't huge, but they stretch on, leaving us drained, yet impossible to ignore. By the time we finally sit down on the couch, we're exhausted. Sometimes, we don't even have the energy to talk, we just sit there, taking in the rare silence of the house like it's a luxury. For me, that's a signal to go to bed early, to prepare for the next day. But for her, this is the only time that feels like her own. She might put on a favorite show, curl up with a book, or just scroll through her phone, simply to feel like she's still a person, not just a mother. It's not just a habit, it's one of the few things that gives her a sense of control over her life. So no, I don't blame her for staying up late. I understand. I just don't want that to become the reason I have to ensure she wakes up on time every morning. In a way, she's the only one in our family who truly enjoys the nighttime. When I'm completely drained and desperate for sleep, she's still clinging to those last quiet moments of the day for herself. An hour of watching TV isn't just entertainment, it's the only part of the day when she doesn't have to do something for someone else. All day, she's surrounded by responsibilities. From the moment the sun rises, she's caught in an endless cycle, feeding the baby, changing diapers, playing with the kids, cleaning up spills, worrying about meals, laundry, and a million tiny things that no one else even notices. No breaks. No time that's truly hers. So when the night comes and the house is finally quiet, that's when she really gets to exist for herself. She can put on a show and watch an episode without being interrupted. She can scroll through social media without worrying about a baby crying. Or she can simply sit in silence and savor the feeling of doing absolutely nothing. That moment isn't about her loving late nights, it's about not wanting the day to end too soon. Because when she turns off the TV, when she puts down her phone, when she gets into bed and closes her eyes, that means tomorrow will come, bringing the same cycle of responsibilities all over again. And I get it. I understand why she values that 1 hour so much. But what I can't accept is that I have to take on the responsibility of ensuring she wakes up on time every morning, just because she chooses to stay up late. We live in two completely different rhythms. I embrace the quiet of the morning, while she clings to the solitude of the night. And while that sometimes creates unavoidable conflicts, I completely understand that she's not lazy or irresponsible, she's simply trying to find balance in a chaotic life. But the real issue isn't her staying up late or me waking up early. The real issue is that she expects me to take on a task that I find unreasonable. Waking her up every morning. Making sure she's actually awake after about 10 minutes, so she doesn't subconsciously turn off her alarm and go back to sleep. If this were just an occasional request for important days, I wouldn't mind. But when it becomes part of my daily routine, I start feeling like I'm responsible for waking up a fully grown adult. I've even suggested she set her own alarm, maybe use the silent vibrating alarm on her Apple Watch or phone to avoid waking the baby. But she refuses, saying they don't work for her. Personally, I use a Garmin watch and a $20 vibrating alarm band. If I can wake up on time every day without anyone else waking me, why can't she? I don't want this to turn into a debate about fairness in marriage, but honestly, should waking up another adult every day really be my responsibility? At first glance, this seems simple, just waking someone up in the morning. But to me, it's not just a request. It's a stressful, frustrating, and long-term obligation. I'm someone who enjoys my peaceful mornings, the rare moments of the day when I can take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy a hot cup of coffee without interruption from screaming kids or endless family responsibilities. But instead of starting my day the way I want, I have to take on the task of waking up a sleeping lion. And this isn't just an ordinary task, it's a high-risk, stressful mission. If I wake her too gently, she won't get up, and then she'll blame me for not waking her properly. If I wake her too forcefully, I'll face a storm, an angry glare, a grumpy voice, and sometimes even a snappy remark that makes me regret fulfilling her request in the first place. To avoid this mess, I've suggested solutions multiple times. I recommended she use a silent vibrating alarm on her phone or Apple Watch if she's worried about waking the baby. But her response is always, "Those things aren't strong enough to wake me." It's ridiculous. I use a Garmin watch and even a cheap $20 vibrating alarm band, and they wake me up just fine. But somehow, she insists that no device can wake her except for me. I just don't get it. Is this really my problem, or is it hers? Just for comparison, I also use a Garmin watch with a vibrating alarm feature, and to make absolutely sure I never oversleep, I even wear a cheap $20 vibrating alarm bracelet. But don't let the price fool you, its vibration is so strong that I can confidently say that if a dead person were wearing it, they'd wake up immediately and wonder, where am I? And yet, she insists that no device in the world is capable of waking her up except for me. The more I think about it, the less I understand. If a simple device can wake me up effortlessly, why can't she find a solution for herself? Why do I have to be her living alarm clock every morning, day after day? I'm her husband, not a personal assistant whose sole purpose is to ensure her morning schedule. The more this goes on, the more I feel that this isn't just a minor favor. At first, I saw it as a simple act of help, but gradually, it turned into an expected duty, another task on my daily to-do list that I never voluntarily signed up for. I completely understand if she needs me to wake her up for truly important occasions, an early flight, a crucial meeting, or a special event that she absolutely cannot miss. But this is happening every morning, day after day, with no alternative solutions in sight. Am I supposed to accept that for the rest of my life? I will be bound to this task. What frustrates me is not waking her up once or twice, but the fact that she takes it for granted, as if it's my obligation, rather than finding a way to solve her own problem. There have been times when I agreed to wake her up at a specific time, but because I was too busy or simply forgot, I ended up waking her just 10 to 15 minutes late. Usually, this wasn't a big deal, she might grumble a little, but everything would still proceed as normal. Even if she was slightly annoyed, she could still get ready without too much stress. But this morning was an entirely different story. I had promised to wake her up at 7 a.m., but time slipped away faster than I expected. 7:05. 7:10. I was busy taking care of our eldest son, who woke up earlier than usual and kept demanding my attention. Everything kept pulling me in different directions: chaos at breakfast, soothing him when he was fussy from a bad night's sleep. I completely forgot my promise. When I finally looked at the clock, it was already 7:20. I rushed into the bedroom, gently shook her, and said, "Wake up." And then everything exploded. By the time I finally called her, her reaction was far from mild. She was visibly frustrated, immediately lashing out that those 20 minutes had ruined her entire morning, leaving her with too little time to get herself and the kids ready. In her eyes, I had broken my promise, and this was the final straw. I understand that she was exhausted and stressed, but from my perspective, waking up 20 minutes late wasn't a disaster. I had been caught up taking care of our son and simply lost track of time. It wasn't as if I deliberately ignored her request. But to her, this wasn't just about this morning anymore. It felt like a sign that I didn't truly care or that I didn't take her request seriously. And this was the moment when everything changed. In the past, I would have just conceded and admitted my mistake for forgetting. But this time, the frustration that had been building inside me for so long finally erupted. I started asking myself, why has waking her up every morning become my responsibility? Why am I being criticized for something she could easily do herself? This morning was already stressful. The kids seemed to wake up in a crankier mood than usual, crying, whining, chaos everywhere. While I was struggling to handle everything, preparing breakfast and calming our eldest, the entire house turned into a mess. And then, when I finally woke her at 7:20 instead of 7 o'clock as promised, she snapped. Her voice was full of frustration, almost accusatory. Now what am I supposed to do? I don't have enough time to get ready. That wasn't just a simple complaint. It carried frustration, pressure, and disappointment. I knew she was exhausted, I knew sleep deprivation made her irritable, but at that moment, I felt like I was being pushed to my limit too. I've put up with this for too long. I never wanted to be her living alarm clock in the first place, yet today, just because I was 20 minutes late, I was suddenly the most terrible person in the house. It felt ridiculously unfair. And so I snapped. No longer holding back, I responded more firmly than ever before. From now on, I will never wake you up in the morning again. You're an adult, and you can take responsibility for this yourself. No more explanations, no more concessions. I didn't deserve this blame, not when I was already doing my best. She looked at me, clearly shocked by my reaction. Maybe she never expected me to push back so strongly because I had always given in, always tried to keep her happy. But this morning, I had finally set a boundary. I no longer wanted to shoulder a responsibility that she was fully capable of handling herself. Since that argument, things have been tense between us. She no longer directly asks me to wake her up, but instead, she throws sarcastic remarks at me. "Oh, I guess even this is too hard for you," she'd say casually whenever I forgot something minor. Or when I asked her for help with something, she'd immediately retort, "Oh, but isn't this a personal responsibility? Shouldn't you handle it yourself?" She didn't yell or openly get angry, but the way she spoke made it clear that she was still holding a grudge. Over time, this stopped being just about waking up in the morning. It turned into a silent battle over responsibility and fairness in our marriage. She says I'm being unreasonable and selfish for refusing to do something so simple. She argues that this isn't just about waking her up, but about caring, a way of showing love and sharing responsibilities in a marriage. But from my perspective, that logic is completely flawed. I've never refused to help her with important matters, but this, waking up every morning, is something an adult should be able to manage on their own. If this really isn't a big deal, then why can't she just do it herself? One evening, when she brought it up again, I responded bluntly. If this is really such a small thing, then why can't you do it yourself? If it's not a big deal, then there's no reason for you to keep making me responsible for it. She fell silent for a moment, but I could tell the argument wasn't over. Because this was no longer just about an alarm clock. It had become a deeper battle over who carries more weight in this marriage, who takes responsibility for whom. So, am I really the bad guy here? I completely understand if it's about special situations, like, please make sure I wake up on time so I don't miss an important flight or remind me to get up for a crucial meeting with my boss. In those cases, I'm more than willing to help because anyone can have an exhausting day and need an extra safeguard. But asking me to do this every single day, making me a human alarm clock, and expecting me to ensure she's fully awake after 10 minutes, is that really reasonable? I understand that our life is incredibly stressful right now. We have 3 children, one of whom is only 6 months old, and both of us are severely sleep deprived. I don't deny that she has to wake up at night to nurse the baby while I sleep soundly beside her. I completely sympathize with her exhaustion. But I also have my own limits. I've adjusted my schedule, waking up early every morning to enjoy a few rare moments of peace before the kids wake up. I have my own responsibilities within the family as well. So why has waking her up on time become a burden placed on my shoulders? If this truly isn't a big deal, why can't she handle it herself? And if it's important enough to need a reminder, why am I the only one held accountable? I don't believe I'm selfish or inconsiderate. I don't refuse to help her in other ways. I'm more than willing to share the responsibilities of childcare, household chores, and supporting her when she needs me. But waking up a grown adult every morning, then making sure she's actually awake, does that really seem fair? So, am I the bad guy in this situation? Or have I simply drawn a necessary boundary? This argument isn't just about who should be responsible for waking whom in the morning. It's a small reflection of the larger differences in how we view responsibility, care, and partnership in our marriage. To me, waking her up felt like a frustrating chore, an unfair burden placed upon me. But to her, it was an act of care, a reassurance that no matter how exhausted she was, I was still there, supporting her in the very first moments of her day. What I take away from this isn't about who's right or wrong. It's that in marriage, we sometimes need to see things from our partner's perspective. The little things that seem insignificant to us might hold great meaning to them. Instead of letting small issues turn into ongoing silent battles, perhaps we both need to communicate more clearly, listen more attentively, and find solutions together instead of turning them into points of contention. Because in the end, marriage isn't a competition where one person wins, it's a journey where both partners need to walk forward together. Marriage isn't a perfect 50-50 split, it's a continuous adjustment between 2 individuals with different habits, needs, and limits. Sometimes, what matters most isn't who's right or wrong, but how we understand and respond to each other's needs. If a minor issue becomes a source of tension, ask yourself, is this about principle, or do I just feel like I'm getting the short end of the stick? If it's about principle, then set a clear boundary. But if it's just about feeling unfairly burdened, maybe it's time to see things from your partner's point of view. Communicate with honesty, listen not just to respond, but to truly understand. Marriage isn't about bargaining with each other, it's a lifelong journey where understanding and compromise often matter more than absolute fairness.